That again and
All
again.
right.
Oh.
Says we're live.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Can you
See us?
see us? Can you hear us? Let us know if everything's working.
Sorry.
Tim's watching on another laptop.
I'm going to watch us on another laptop. I can hear us and see us, so I'm going to put that laptop away.
So grab your drink of choice. We're going for beer tonight.
Yeah. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Let us know, can you hear and see us?
Hey, Scott. Thank you. He says we look great.
Hey, Trevor. Thanks for becoming a YouTube member.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have just recently done the YouTube member thing, so it's kind of new to us, but
we're sort of figuring it out.
Yeah.
Give us a little leeway on the YouTube member thing. It's so new to us that we're kind of looking at it just like we would Patreon. So we'll post videos to members earlier. In terms of whether you do YouTube memberships or Patreon, it doesn't really matter to us.
No, yeah, you'll get the same like beforehand content, some exclusive content, stuff like that. So either one works for us. Cool. I think everyone can hear us and see us. So if I'm looking this way, there's my laptop's right here, so I'm looking at questions and stuff.
First, an update, I guess, what we've been up to.
Yeah, last time we saw you we were in Reno, I think.
Yep, we were up there and we were mapping trails up in the mountains, and we got dumped on a bunch of snow. And I think we may have done that live right around that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we said we were done or not, but
I don't
basically
think we knew yet.
It dumped on us a bunch of snow, and we looked at all the trails, and it was just time to call it for winter in terms of mapping up there. So we headed directly from there to Baja. I literally had a text message from a buddy saying, there's an open seat. Do you want to race? And it was like, but I'm working, or I would love to, but we need to work and save for the next leg of the trip. And then the next day it snowed. So the racing gods were like, you should go. So we're just like, well, I mean,
I guess we have to now.
We're coming from northern Nevada, so give us a couple days. And we just headed straight south into Mexico. And then you may have seen the blog post on that. But that was a great adventure and good to get back to racing, even if wasn't driving. It was so good
to be back in Baja. It was really cool because that was my first experience being around the Baja, whatever, 500, 1,000. But
you'd come down to one of the Pro Desert races, which is what a buddy and I still sometimes race. That last one was 2017 that I drove.
Yeah, right before we left.
And they're smaller than the Baja 1000, but same basic stuff, desert racing. But this time she got to ride in that pre-runner, which that pre-runner was at such a level that she got to sort of experience the violence and, your guts hurting of the shaking that you feel.
I also get motion sick pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I got to sit in the back seat of that car for, what do you think, 8 hours?
Yeah, I think that pre-run day was like 8-10 hours because it went into the dark that night and stuff. Yeah. And so it was
awesome. It was quite an experience. Like Tim loves it so much, and I've never been able to ride in the car, like actually experiencing it. Yeah. And so I really wanted to get to experience it, and it was amazing. Also, like one of the hardest things, like it's a constant car crash. Yeah. It's intense, and I did get sick, but overall it was really cool.
And a lot of people get sick in those cars, especially when you're trying to look down at course notes or the GPS. The driver usually doesn't because your eyes are on the horizon the whole time. But yeah, people think it's like driving fast, and it's just so violent. If you've ever raced, it's genuinely hurts you. When we got out of the pre-runner, she's like, this is horrible for you. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure micro head injuries, I'm sure all that constantly throughout the entire time you're racing. It's not good for you, but there's just something that feels like you're living life to the max in that moment, and you're risking a lot, but at least in a roll cage like that, you're pretty safe. The motorcycle guys get hurt often, and that's really sad. Like you'll see in Dakar, anytime you watch Dakar, it's rough to watch the motorcycle guys because they don't have that benefit.
Definitely unlike anything else. It's pretty cool.
So we did that. Then we got back into the U.S. and a guy who actually we had talked to when we were in South America. We were helping him build his truck. He wanted to build an 80 series, and we kind of helped him find a truck and gave him all the thoughts I could have from the years of owning ours and different trucks on what we would do, what we wouldn't. And he had built his 80 series and said, hey, we're about to head into Mexico. Could you train us for a little bit hands-on? So we spent 2 days or 3 days, 2 days, 2 days with them, training them. And then we got back to Phoenix, and then it was time to sell more. So we thought we sold, we say like, oh, we sold everything, and went, 2.5 years on the road, or however long it's been now.
Yeah.
But really there was a lot of stuff we kept in a storage unit. I mean, we rented the house, we sold a lot, but when we got home, we looked in the storage unit and we looked at all this stuff we're paying to store. We're like, why do I have an old Costco couch that's worth nothing? Why am I paying to store this? Why do we have that? Why do we have that? And so it was time to pare down. So we've been selling more stuff. We're trying to get down to a little 10 by 10 that are just going to be some family items that we can't get rid of.
Yeah.
Photos until we scan those, and then we might even be able to get rid of boxes of photos. But just that kind of stuff is all we want to have left.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we left, we kind of had the idea, like, what if we don't like this? We've never done a very extended travel trip like this. So, we kind of kept things thinking if we want to come back, or like we don't have any money at the end of this trip and we're coming back to regular life essentially. So we kept kind of like the bare minimum of what we thought we would want to come back to. And coming back, we realized that we don't want to come back. We're fully in for this lifestyle. And that means we have to make the choice between some of the stuff we still kept and continuing on this route and having less. And so.
Yeah. And I think when we first left, we thought a year is going to feel so we can do so much that after a year, we'll just go back to work. And so that year just goes so fast. And then you think about it in a different term and you go, how many years do I think I'll live? Oh man, that's not enough. I need to get going. And it's funny how you go from a whole year to do what we want. For the first time ever, it's not just a 3-day weekend or a week-long vacation that you had to negotiate with your boss. Please give me my whole 5 days off in a row. And they're like, oh. So you're thinking a year is going to feel like so satisfaction filled that it's going to be enough. And then as soon as you're done with the year, you're like, this is a big planet and there's so much I want to do and there's so many people I want to meet. We need to get after it. And that's where we're at now. So we sold, if you've seen some of the Instagram photos or some of the old videos, that we had my dream car. It was our dream car in a way too, but it was the poster on the wall when I was a little kid. So I bought this sort of rough black 911, spent all this time working on it. We both did all the work on it, hundreds of hours underneath it, did our honeymoon road trip in it. We'd camp out of it. We'd pack our camping gear in it and just, go and camp out of it. And we sold that, but it's actually a good thing. I got to own my dream car.
It is. So. It's so hard, you realize, to let go of stuff sometimes. Like for those things, like the Porsche, we had a lot of emotional connection, so many good memories with it. And we love that car. Yeah. But it's also so freeing to feel like we don't have anything in one place to worry about, that we're free to go wherever we want to go. And so.
A wise man who's done a lot of traveling named Mike up in Colorado / Austin, Texas. Well, he lives all over, but he said to me, he goes, sell everything before you go. You won't regret it. It won't weigh on your mind. And he's right. The whole time we were traveling, I'd think, do I have the right insurance on that? What if a rat gets into it and eats a cord and, it burns to the ground or whatever. So the less you have when you're traveling, the more free your mind's going to be. And the happiest people we met on the road were always the ones who sold everything. Like they had nothing that was weighing on them or that they were paying to have. So that's where we're heading and that's our goal is, except for the vehicle we're traveling in, to have essentially nothing. And, like I said, there'll always be a few family things, that you need to hold on to or whatever, but pretty minimal. So
Carl says our Costco couch could have been an heirloom in 1,000 years.
You're right. I know. So we should have held on to it. I did see one question up at the top there before we even went live that I wanted to answer. Somebody asked about Baja, and man, you're right. Our minds are all on Baja, I think, when it's cold. Yeah. And our favorite area, it's actually the Traveling Together Journal. I noticed on the Instagram stories, they're there right now.
Oh, really?
Our campsite where we found the old surfboard and I paddled around, they're there right now. So essentially from El Rosario on the Pacific side down to Guerrero Negro, occasionally you have to leave the coast, but for most of that, you kind of can just hug the coast. And we never see anyone there. We saw a couple of fishermen and locals. You do pass a few towns where you could maybe get a taco.
If it's lobster season, there could be more, not a lot of people, but you might see more people.
Yeah, they'll beach their palapas, but they're from one of the actual bigger cities. So it's a whole section that's sort of a preserve. And you can just spend 4, 5, 6, 7 days moving every day, driving on the beach and never see another human. And if you do, of course, they're always awesome. But that's, I think, my favorite part of all of Baja, because you have to work to get there. And that deters 99% of people. If you're only going to Baja for 3 days, there's no point in trying to take a day just to get down to the coast there. from El Rosario, you actually have to go inland and then off road all day. That's a lot of waste of time if you're not there for very long. And then if you're not confident in being alone and remote, that's a big deterrent too. So I love it. It's a great area that I hope they never improve the roads, because that's what makes it
it's
great.
like the essential Baja, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's my favorite section, which, it wasn't really a town, which was the question, but there are little towns, but you're talking one little hut, 3 little huts, and then you just ask, can I get food here? And if you can, it's always amazing. And if you can't, you just keep on cruising. But
Baja is it depends on like what you want, like if you're super into surfing, there's those towns. If you're, I don't know, the little cute towns, and then there's the remote stuff, which is what we obviously are passionate about. So
I see Dylan said, did I have a kidney belt on? No, which makes it worse. So like for racing, when we were more into it and stuff, I'd always wear a kidney belt just to hold your guts in one spot.
We didn't have time to go get it.
No, we didn't have time to go get that sort of stuff. I was showing up, everything was borrowed, fire suit, helmet, everything. So, but it worked out in the end. But I agree, kidney belts are kind of awesome to just hold and help your back a little bit too, and all that beating. But one of the things we want to talk about is sort of our plans. That's a tough one to answer, just because I think the world's going to tell us where we're going next. We have met so many amazing people from so many countries on the trip, and then because of the trip, just reaching out, talking to us, that, man, our list is huge. I mean, everywhere. We want to go everywhere. So, which is tough right now when you can go essentially nowhere. One of the areas we wanted to go was Australia, because there's so many people that we've met just randomly before the trip, during, after, that we'd love to go visit and hang out with. That was like top of the list.
Yeah.
But right now we were researching the stands. I've always wanted to go to Mongolia, and soon, before, not just Mongolia, all the stands in that area and stuff, before, it becomes more touristy and more well-traveled. And so that's an area that, to me, I just have been dying to go.
Yeah.
Of course, Africa, that's always at the top, I think, of any overlander's list. And so we don't know where we're going to be able to go first. So I think that's going to determine it. And if we can't leave the country, we're looking at doing motorcycle trips, and maybe go and do all the backcountry discovery routes on 2 dirt bikes, camp off them, grab a hotel occasionally, do something like that. If summer hits and there's no more of the mapping work, because primary for us is save money for the future trip. But if we can't do any more work, then maybe head up to Alaska. Not that we don't want to do all the domestic traveling, but it's here. It's right here. It's somewhat protected, BLM land and forest land and all that. So we know it'll always be here. So if for some reason later in life we couldn't afford to leave, our health wouldn't let us leave, whatever, the American West, Baja, and Canada and Alaska are always sort of near us. And so we kind of want to go further right now. And then we know that's here when we come back. And we've done so much West exploring. You could never do it all, though. So there's not like any threat that we're close to seeing it all by any means. I mean, we've been going to Death Valley. I've been going to Death Valley for 15 years or something. And it's an onion that keeps, you keep finding new layers. You keep finding a new trail to a new mine, to a new cabin. You hear about maybe a hot spring somewhere that people don't know about. And then you spend 2 years searching for it, So we'll never run out of stuff here in the U.S.
No, there's so much to see. We're so lucky.
Yeah,
here.
We really are.
What about selling the 40?
Oh, I don't know. That's a real tough one. So if we're gone for a long time, I do think it's not right to just let the truck sit there. But if there was ever a truck that has the ability to sit still, it's the 40. I mean, we found them with mice living in them. Spider webs everywhere. And the first year we left, I was so focused on making sure the 911 was okay and was going to start when we got home, that I didn't even disconnect the battery on the 40, which is stupid. When we got home, full year, we get home, get in there, and I go, oh my gosh, the battery's still connected. What was I thinking? We removed the little mouse traps that were in it, turned the key, and it just started, not even on a battery tender, which so it has zero parasitic draw. It just sat. So if there's ever a truck that could sit in the sun, in the shade, in a garage, it's pretty happy to.
Yeah.
But I do think at some point, if we're going to be gone, for years at a time or something, then we'd probably even have to sell the 40. It's just not, he's just a wonderful
tractor.
Yeah, a little tractor. And it's not bad to have some wheels when you get back to the US, even if those wheels only do like 60 miles an hour, white knuckle. Yeah. With no power steering, no air conditioning, but yeah.
It's cool to see all of you guys. There's so many names in here that we recognize. So hello to everybody.
I know it's too many to say hello to all of you, but I'm like, oh, hey, look. Oh,
yeah. It's been really, really cool. All the people, especially back in the US, because we get to meet or have gotten to meet a lot of you.
Yeah.
Despite COVID, kind of taking that away. But it's been really amazing to have this community, and you guys inspire us just as much as we inspire you. So,
somebody asked, would we go back to South America? Absolutely. There's so
many places. Every time we're talking about it, we're like, oh, we got to go back there. Remember that little place? The
distance from Alaska to the tip of South America, if you just drive it straight up, is only like 15,000 miles. And so we did over 80,000 miles if you include us heading up to Canada to cut the top off and all that. And so we did, quote, a lot. But when I look at our little map, if you've seen the map that I've drawn, it's on our website. It's got video links to where all the videos were shot on it, or I posted it to Instagram, I think. It looks like we did a lot. And then you think, no, I mean, we could, for the rest of our lives, zig and zag throughout Central and South America and keep seeing new stuff. So we totally want to go back to South America. But at the moment, we just want to go to somewhere totally shocking and new, something that's culture shock and is just completely different, So we don't know where that is yet. But yeah, South America is absolutely forever on the list, and the food and the people, and Brazil, we saw this much, and I want to go back to Brazil so badly.
Yeah, Brazil is huge on the list. We didn't get to do as much as we had hoped in Chile. So we'd love to go back there for sure. Up to like French Guiana. And
I'll forever think about the hamburger in Buenos Aires at a place called the Food Truck Store. Best hamburger on earth. That includes really, really US good hamburgers. Amazing. So yeah, I mean, there's everywhere we want to go back to. So I don't think there's any shortage of places to go. It's just we find ourselves in this world right now where you can't really go too many places. So for us, it's just saving mode. And I want to say thank you to all the people who've become patrons. It's really intimidating is not the right word. It's like it is overwhelming though. Like wow, people are enjoying it, and someday maybe we could break even. We're not ever looking to make money off of doing this, but the idea that you could break even and not stop for 6 months and work, that's a dream. So we're blown away by how many people have done that. So thank you. And that is the goal eventually, is just keep saving, keep working, so we don't have to stop. So we just keep going. So we get to Magadan, Russia, and we go, cool, what now? Where are we heading next? And you just keep going. And then we can keep getting the video better. This camera is a new camera we just got, and we want to get a new drone before we leave. And,
just keep making the quality better, so it's easier and more enjoyable to watch as we continue to go on.
Rob, Arctic Circle, 2 wheels. Think about it. 2 really big wheels that have good flotation. I'm in. Maybe summer only. I'll meet you in Mongolia. Okay, we'll do. So, I think there's it's pretty unlimited where we can go. One of the other things, and feel free to keep asking questions, I'll keep checking it out. One of the things we wanted to talk about, because we're always asked about budget. How much money do I need? We have people email us their plans for their truck build, and sometimes well over $100,000. Now, if $100,000 to you is like not a lot of money, but you put whatever you want into your truck.
Yeah.
But when it seems sort of frustrating or maybe makes me a little sad, as you go, man, that's a lot to that person. They're going to work for the next decade to build a truck to go do this, and you just don't need to. People, do the Lagunas route in a all-wheel drive van, So don't worry too much about the vehicle and how you prep it. We've had friends who rebuilt their engine twice just while doing the Pan American. They met the nicest people in the world. They're hanging out at a ranch and, going on horseback rides at some massive ranch because they broke down. So I wouldn't say that, except for the exception of a couple of deserts and maybe a couple of mountain areas, you're so remote that you're not going to see humans who would help you. So don't worry too much about, the truck. And then the other thing I'd say is don't worry too much about the budget. I think as humans, we fixate on that, and then it becomes a roadblock to ever going, I never saved enough, never could build the perfect truck. I mean, we met people on bicycles that was Colombia.
Colombia, yeah.
And they had been on the road. Actually, no, it was Ecuador.
You're right.
It was at Cotopaxi. Yeah. And they had been on the road for 2 years, and they hadn't left Colombia. They said, we took 2 years and like a crazy small budget. It was like $4,000 for 2 years. So they were basically living like homeless people, working like whenever they could, washing dishes, whatever. But one was French and one was Colombian, I think.
I think
Couple.
so. Yeah.
And they basically, they said we had 2 years to do South America, but 2 years wasn't even enough to do everything we wanted to do in Colombia. So now we're here in Ecuador and we have 6 months left, and you go, wow, okay. So that's the crazy small side of the budget. And then you might have seen Miguel or Mike, from Australia, who got stumbled into a free pickup truck in Baja. Somebody gave it to him, and he did the whole thing in this free pickup truck. Had to repair it, had to put fuel in it. But in terms of budgets, again, on the super small side, we've seen people on motorcycles who rough it and camp, but that's pretty rare. I would say 98% of the people on motorcycles stay in a hostel every night almost, because it's a pain to camp sometimes when you're already sweaty and tired at the end of the day. So they pay a lot more in camping or hostel fees, but then far less in fuel.
Yeah.
We know of another couple who, when asked what their number one expense was, they said food. And I was like, wait, what? That's the one thing that's cheaper than the United States. Fuel's more expensive. A lot of things are actually more expensive than they are in the US. Booze, anything like that is more expensive usually, but food is cheap. And it turns out they really love going to whatever the nicest, highest rated place is in a city or in a country, they wanted to experience it. So they were spending number one food. So I would say don't worry too much about the dollar amount that it is. Everyone agrees that with 15 or 20 grand, you could do the whole trip. Mm-hmm. And the slower you move, the cheaper it is per month, because fuel tends to be your biggest cost.
Yep.
And the faster you move, the more it is per month, because fuel is your biggest cost. So if you can slow yourself down, which we weren't very good at the first year,
mm-hmm. And I would say you could do pretty much the whole trip if you really wanted to and tried hard, without paying for camping. If you were cool not paying for camping, not paying for hostels, hotels, anything like that. We did it occasionally, but if you were really committed to, doing everything on the cheap, you could do free camping the whole time.
Yep.
Someone asked, based on your series, it's tempting to just ship to South America and skip the Central America portion. I wonder how you feel about this.
Not to besmirch my buddy Alejandro from Vibes of Panama, who you've seen our interview with. Central America is amazing, but it is crowded, right? It's a smaller landmass that have had people living in it for thousands of years. And so it's so compact that it's tougher to truly overland and camp remotely. As you saw in our videos, we spent 3 or 4 hours of the day, every day, hunting for a campsite because we didn't want to pay. We wanted to be remote. And you found them and they were amazing. But so many of them were just basically hopping from campground to campground if you didn't search. So Central was tough, but awesome. I mean, Guatemala might be one of our favorite countries because of the crazy history, the amount of pyramids. When we were off-roading out there, you get past Tikal, past Yasha and Nakum, and you're seeing what look like hills, and then you stop and climb up on one, and it's a pyramid. Has no name, hasn't been. I'm sure someone knows it's there probably on LiDAR or whatever when they've looked at it, but it has no, searching of it that's been done. It's as close to Indiana Jones as you get to feel
really
like.
Does, yeah.
So there's amazing stuff in Central, but I would say if you weren't sure if you could afford to do Central and South, I mean, South is more of the overlander's paradise of the two, I think. But I loved Central, so don't discount it. But I would, I don't think it's crazy to do that. In fact, Kirk from Inspiration Overland, did I butcher his name? Kirk.
I'm so bad at knowing what. Yeah.
But he changed his name at one point, so that's why it was hard to remember. But he shipped in his van into Chile and was going to do South America and drive north. Tim and Shannon of Planet Overland, they shipped to Australia first because the truck was clean, and that's super important for Australia, which is very difficult to ship to. They did a loop of Australia for a year and then shipped right to South America. So there are a lot of people going south to north. Europeans, a lot of them ship to south and drive north and then head back to Europe. So yeah, I mean, if you're not sure if you could do both, I think it's a great idea to go to South America first. And then if you can afford it, do Central. And if you can't, you can always fly into a lot of Central. You might not be able to do that jungle off-roading I was talking about without a truck or renting a truck from like Nomad. Isn't Nomad America, I think?
I think that's the name. Yeah, there's one or two companies.
All the cool beaches and like the cool places to go eat and surf. They have tourist infrastructure. So overlanding isn't a necessity.
Yeah, totally. And I think, again, it's depending on what you're wanting, because for us, it was harder to find like that remoteness that we wanted. But some people aren't as into that. And so I don't know. It just depends. But I wouldn't say it's a bad idea if you're low on budget to skip it.
Carl, what you're saying, about what Dan's saying about budget, it's completely true. So I can't even tell you. I think people sometimes on the road, I would say something like, God, we bought that ARB compressor twin. It works great. It's a great compressor. And when I was on a rush all the time in the US, 10 less minutes airing up meant something to me. So I bought the nicest compressor you could buy. Great. And then it was, $550. And when you're on the road, $500, or even let's just say you bought a $150 compressor, but $300-400 that you could have saved that's no longer in your hands. I mean, you genuinely miss it. Even if you have plenty of money, you kind of go, what was I thinking? Who cares how long it takes to air up my tires? $400, we could have done that 4-day tour out into those islands and gone snorkeling. We could have traveled on $400 almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's including fuel, depending on the country.
Yeah.
$400 or $100 is so much money in country doing stuff that it's tough when you have a steady paycheck. We went through the storage unit and I kept finding packets of zip ties. And I was like, this is the 15th packet of zip ties. And it must have been when I was sitting in the office, sort of in my old life. I was just like, I want to buy something, that addiction to buying, but I want it to be practical. I don't know if we have enough zip ties. And we did plenty. But Gorilla Tape and zip ties, I looked in the storage unit and went, you idiot. You spent it. Again, it's not a ton of money, but I bet I spent $300 on zip ties and Gorilla Tape and stuff like that I didn't need. And when you're on the road and not drawing a normal paycheck, you go, wow, I could have left a year, 2 years earlier, So absolutely think about that. Every $25 or $50 goes so far.
Yeah, you start to think about everything differently too. Like Tim was saying, in normal life, we tended to value our time a lot more, or in a different way, right? You didn't have as much time, free time. And so you start to look at that time as like, what's 2 days? If it's saving me money or whatever, you start looking at stuff a lot differently than in the normal life.
Sandra asked if we felt safe while traveling in Central and South America. It's a big concern. And I think that intrinsically, it's probably everyone's biggest concern, whether they admit it or not. We see some people sort of attack overlanding as a tactical thing, like, okay, set up a perimeter around camp and what do we do? And, not that we don't think about what will we do. We do chat, hey, if I say this and we're walking through a city, just follow me. Like somebody's following us or I see a pickpocket kid or something. So we talked about it. And I don't think any of that thought is bad, but I do think you have to let it go because every single time we ever thought something shady was happening, it never was. Mm-hmm. The shady stuff was really obvious. There's a guy on the side of the road. He's pointing down, and you're going, that seems weird. Everything feels fine. And then there's another guy pointing. And then sure enough, you look it up online later, maybe iOverlander, and there's a pin saying, yeah, the local scammers will try and get you to pull over. They're not trying to stab you. They're not trying to, usually not even trying to rob you. But the accounts that we had read were, well, they'll say something's broke and they know most of these overlanders are not that mechanical. So they'll pull off a part and say, oh, this is broken. And then they go and clean it, spray paint it, bring it back. And they're like, yeah, this is a new $200 one. And so it's sort of like a softer type of theft, I guess. I mean, it's still theft, but it's not like they're going to beat you and take everything. Not saying that hasn't happened before. Stuff happens, certainly, but
we definitely get all the negative media more than the positive stuff because on a daily basis, the amount of positive stuff that happens is way more, but you always hear about the bad stories and the scary stories. Yeah. And I think for me, if I could tell myself something before we went on the trip would be to worry about all of that kind of stuff a lot less because, like Tim was saying, there are people who want to scam you. And I think as an American, I'm more skeptical of people in general. And most of the time, even if you happen to get scammed, it wasn't a big thing. Yeah. And it's better to be trusting of people, I think. And that will reward you so much more than trying to be safe and, not get scammed ever. And
wouldn't you say that our biggest regret is probably not being more trustworthy?
Right. Yeah.
There was never a time we trusted somebody and it worked out poorly.
Yeah.
Any of the scammers, your gut is yelling at you and saying, no, this is not good, or no, don't go there, or whatever. Every time though somebody offered us something, we had somebody want to take us out on their boat or whatever. We had people say, yeah, come to my ranch, or my 4x4 club's having an event. And sometimes we're just generally introverts and generally shy, which I know is weird because here we are doing this. But Sometimes we said no and we went, I follow that guy on Instagram for 2 years now because he talked to us early in the trip. We should have hung out with him. Why didn't we go do that? That could have been so cool. So like when I say Guatemala is one of our favorites, it's because my buddy Graham here in the United States, he's a director of training at Overland Expo, and he got me into the whole training thing. He said, got to call Byron. I was like, oh, okay. You have this guy's number and you're like, I don't know Byron. I don't want to bug him. That phone call, he goes, okay, where are you headed? Antigua. Well, you got to call Jose. I mean, we ended up staying at Jose's house for weeks, hanging out with him. He showed us around. Then, where else are you heading? He gives us a phone number. And it's like the whole country opened up because of one call and one trusting in putting yourself out there a little bit. Yeah. So I would say, I don't think you will always feel safe, but I would say that most of the time it wasn't warranted when we didn't feel safe. It was overreaction. It was overly cautious. It was a lifetime of hearing bad things about some of these countries. I mean, El Salvador was amazing and wonderful.
Mm-hmm. People were so friendly.
Yeah. I mean, it was nighttime on this one road and I was like, uh-oh, we shouldn't be driving at night. Not quite the same hard rule as we treat it in Mexico, but still we don't like to drive at night in general. And there was a girl, in like short shorts jogging. And I was like, okay, if she feels safe, I think we're fine. I was overreacting maybe. But yeah, you're always, I think, going to be worried. I just think you have to sort of, over time, remember that you've had so little bad experiences. Or the police, everyone, you're going to get hassled by so many police. I think we counted 4 total.
4 total.
One was scary in Mexico City because they were so forceful and angry about it. All the others were like, come on, I don't make a lot of money, and we waited them out and we said, oh, you're hungry. Okay, we'll make you some food. And we started getting the kitchen out and then he rolls his eyes like, God, I wanted money, not food. And you're like, what, do you want some rice? You want some eggs? And then they just let you go. And then I think about how many thousands of police we must have driven past and nothing happened.
So many of them were amazing. I mean, there was one time, I forget where we were, but I think it was Chile. And we had pulled over and it's like dumping rain. And we were just looking at maps or doing something. And he came over to like see what we were doing because we were just sitting on the street in the truck as it's idling. And we were like, oh, we're looking to, figure it out. And he's like, oh, okay. And starts asking us where we're from. And he was trying to practice his English, which was really cute. And then he's like, hold on. And he runs back inside and comes back out with a plastic bag. And it's a piece of bread that I don't know, his wife had made or something. And he wanted us to like have this fresh made bread. And he had like wrapped it in a bag.
He's standing in the pouring rain too.
And so, I mean, so many amazing.
But every time when that guy walked up, I was like here we go. My wall is up. My mental wall is up. Like, what is this guy going to say? And what are the words in Spanish I need to have ready to go? And he's just like, where are you guys from? Wow. And he gives us some bread. Another time in Ecuador, we're camped on a road that's no longer in use on a switchback, and we had to tilt to get there. So I go, cool, no one's going to come along. We're totally good. And then I get out at night to go to the restroom, and I look up, and there's 3 guys in black hooded sweatshirts up here, and there's 2 dogs. And then right in front of me is an old man, like 6 feet away, scared me half to death. And I was like, this is bad. Again, my mind going right to this is not good. And the guy kind of lights up when he sees me, and he goes, who are you? In Spanish, who are you? What are you doing here? I was like, oh, well, we're from the United States and we're driving all the way to South America. And my name's Tim and that's Kelsey up there. And then he goes, we were terrified because we heard there's a suspicious truck in our area. This is like our area that we sort of like, call home. And we were terrified of like who you guys are and what you're up to. And, oh, okay, well, that's awesome. And then the dogs came down and of course they're licking me to death and they were adorable. And he's like, we'll check on you throughout the night. Those are my sons, and we're like the neighborhood security guys, and we'll check on you throughout the night. And it went from to okay, people are good. People are wonderful, really.
That was one of my top 5 dogs. I wanted to take that dog.
Yeah. It was, I don't know what the mix was, but it was pretty rad.
Awesome.
Will you go up a little bit?
Yeah.
One that's quick, I'll answer as she's going back up. It's not at the top of the order, but the ham radio license, pretty much worthless. I hate to say it. So I love ham radio here in the US. We've been using it I think I got my license 15 years ago because the desert racing guys use modified ham radios. Technically, it's probably everyone at a desert race is mostly probably illegally using radios. So we started using them a long time ago in college in like the 90s. And then I just found they were so much better. You could be on one side of Baja talking to your buddy on the far other side with a mountain in the middle. So it was great. But in Mexico, I had APRS running, which is a system that uses your radio to ping a tower to put your location online. So you can go to like APRS, just type into Google APRS, and you'll see a map, and you can even look up our call sign and see us on there. but it works really well in the US. The moment we left, it didn't. There's a different offset you need to use for each country. I won't get too into the boring radio talk, but I did what I needed to do on the radio, and no one could figure it out. All the ham radio guys, in the US just stay in the US. So they're like, we don't know how to make it work in Mexico or Central or South America. So once we were on the road, the radio was pretty much a brick, worthless. So, and I bought a brand new one before we left. So again, sort of wasted money. Now that we're in the US, I've been using it again and it's great. So I think US is great. Or if you're in a group of people, to use ham radios in another country like Baja, great, more range, And if a race is going on, you can tune in and listen to the race frequencies, which is great. But for the more international stuff, I just don't think it's worth it. And then I think in Australia and other places, they use a different frequency band. So I love the ham radio license here in the US. We both have one.
Yeah, it's a great thing to have, great safety measure, I think, when you're remote and especially alone.
Yeah. We've been in the middle of nowhere, no cell signal, nothing. And I can pick up the local ambulance channel, in the middle of somewhere, Utah, and you go, hey, worst case, it's not legal for me to chat on that channel. But if I'm in like life safety situation, I'm going to radio in on that. And I modified my radio to be able to transmit. And it's illegal for me to transmit, but I don't believe it's illegal for you to modify your ham radio so you could transmit. Just don't do it. And then if there is a serious life or death situation, talk to anybody that'll listen.
Yeah. Slow Baja. Can I drive 3,000 miles through Baja in my stock FJ40 on 30-inch tires? I only have 2 cases of tequila.
No way.
Won't make it.
No, 3 cases minimum. That's awesome. Check out Slow Baja. We did a podcast with him.
Yeah.
And just super good guy. I love what he's doing.
A lot of
and
really cool people that he interviews.
Yeah. And he's interviewing a lot of people too from Baja racing and Baja exploring history that may not be around for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to get this document of like their experiences, their favorites, their stories.
Yeah, we've enjoyed listening to it. Let's see.
Transit camper van. What do you guys do for medical insurance? So yeah, a camper van would be perfect, man.
Yeah.
It's funny when just off topic before I answer your question. When we see people in vans, when it's raining, we're all inside the van hanging out, having a beer, and we're like, oh, vans are amazing.
We should have a van.
Yeah. And then when you're going through traffic, and then the guy on the motorcycle comes through and he hits the tope, the speed bump, and he's just up on the pegs, bop, we're like, motorcycle, that's what we need. And then when we're up in the mountains on a shelf road and all of our friends in, some type of transportation can't get up there, we're like, nah, this is the best. So there is no perfect truck. You'll always wish, depending on the day or the situation, you had something slightly different. Yeah. But I think a transit would be really cool to have.
Family,
Medical insurance on the road. Most policies are set up for short trips. And so, and if I'm wrong, sorry, this is all research we did before we left, but essentially you're not going to be able to get travel insurance or medical insurance for international use for the amount of time we wanted to go. So there isn't like 2-year policies or a policy that renews every year. Most of the websites, if you put in more than 30 days, they go, vacation more than 30 days? No, that doesn't
exist.
Yeah. So it's really tough. So essentially most of these countries, health coverage is so much cheaper than the US. You could pay to have yourself airlifted to the nicest hospital in the whole country. And usually that hospital is going to be very similar to the US. Not always. I mean, in Bolivia, and I'm sure, I don't mean to say something negative about Bolivia, but there's a lot of places in Bolivia where the nicest hospital I don't think would be that nice.
Yeah.
Was it Santa Cruz? That would be a really nice town. But so what we did is we got like a MedJet membership, and the MedJet membership basically was just there as a stopgap. So if it's real serious, so serious that we're leaving the truck, we need to get one of us to the US. That was there for that. So wherever you're at in the world, helicopter, jet, whatever, they're going to get you from where you're at to the US as long as it's above a certain level of seriousness. Mm-hmm. And that, I think it even worked for like overthrow, so you're in Peru and all of a sudden the government's overthrown and the State Department orders all Americans to get home or leave Peru, let's say. That would be another one that would trigger the insurance to pay for you to come home. So we did get that as a stopgap, but like we had friends, I think Tim and Shannon had to go to the hospital in Argentina, and they said they were there for like a week.
Yeah, and it was great.
In the emergency room and then into a more care facility after that. He was staying there as well. All the meals were, part of it. And their bill was like $350 or $450 US. Yeah. So, as long as you can get used to the idea of using the facilities in the countries you're traveling in, I think that's how we did anyways. I can't say that's what I think is best because who knows. But do you have vehicle insurance? Yes, but In all these countries, you can get insurance at the border. Mexico, easy. You can get a really good policy from Baja Bound or AAA or whomever. And it seems like a real policy that would actually pay out. As soon as you hit Guatemala, there is no company that we could find that would cover our car internationally. You can get renter's insurance back home. They might cover your cameras, your laptop while you're traveling, but not really the car. Yeah. And so as soon as you enter Guatemala and everything south, you're just buying insurance at the border. And that insurance is probably the closest thing to worthless you could ever find. I mean, the sheet of paper was just hilarious. And you're like, I don't even think it's legible, but we need it legally to get in the country. And then you'd search on iOverlander for people who got better insurance. And everyone says, nope, there's nothing better. That's it. Ecuador, I think you couldn't get insurance for a foreign vehicle. There was no company, and it was all over iOverlander saying, nope, the whole country, you're just going to be bare. So good luck, but it's also not illegal. So that's good. And so it's really tough to get vehicle insurance. So if you're traveling in a $100,000 truck, you really got to either look at the $100,000 or whatever your vehicle is worth as something you would be sad, but you could totally lose, or you got to get a cheaper truck, I think. And so that's for us, we've always been kind of in the middle there, trying to, we love our truck and would never want it to be a total loss or stolen and not get any sort of money. But we kind of came to terms with it and just went, you know what, if it happens, it happens. So.
Rob said, is there a Tim and Kelsey Get Lost coffee table book in the works?
There totally should be. I think, yeah. No, we'll try to. Good idea. And one of the things we want to do too is we were so focused on making sure we did the trip, and then the videos were just something we were going to try and do secondarily, that we didn't really have a great DSLR camera. We weren't,
we also didn't realize how much time and effort it takes to make videos and edit videos.
Yeah. So, during the trip, while you're in the business of traveling, which it takes up more time than you think, then, she's editing for 35 to 45 hours a week. And then she's shooting too. We're working on the truck. And so your life is just, you're far busier. I know it sounds weird, but you're far busier while doing a trip like this than you were at home. At least us, I could say for us.
Yeah.
We had free time. We had, hey, you want to go on a mountain bike ride? And on the trip, after a few weeks, we'd go, that's it. We're setting down all the stuff we're trying to do, and we're going to go for a hike. But you really had to set the time aside.
If you could get any other vehicle, what would it be?
Man,
hard question.
So hard. Like I've said this before, I think my dream truck right now for our current life, living in it full time, and stops occasionally with four walls to get a shower. Something like those Maltec trucks. They're R80 series chassis, but with a box on the back of it. The Troopies, I think, are great trucks. I'm not just all going to go Toyota here, I promise. But those are ones that we genuinely consider. If we fly into a country and they have those, we might have to switch to something else if shipping goose is too expensive. So all those I like. I don't know, what else do you think? Stuff like the Unimogs is all really attractive, but then I can't get on a lot of the little shelf road trails. And then when you go into the mud, you could be stuck semi-permanently sometimes.
Yeah, I think we talk about so many different adventures, and then with each different adventure, you have a different mode of transportation or a different type of mode of transportation. We talk about doing stuff on motorcycles. We talk about, some trips would be cool in something like a Sprinter. Other trips would be cool in a boat. It just depends on kind of what the focus of that particular trip is for me, I think. And then that kind of determines the vehicle, because there is nothing that can do it all, unfortunately.
Yeah. If we went bigger, we would carry mountain bikes or maybe even a little dirt bike or something. And then that would be the more extreme adventuring. And then we'd have a base camp. If we went to, I think any of the Toyota platforms, because I know them, are fine. 200 series, 80 series, I don't know. All that's great. But it's not a big change from what we have. So I wouldn't bother, and I'm comfortable with what we have. If we were really going to change it, stuff like Unimogs and stuff are interesting. They're big, and we see how people travel with them and the experiences they have versus the guy on a motorcycle who meets everybody, because he's always right there at their level at a stoplight. Hey, how's it going? And so mountain bike or bicycle and motorcycle are probably the most in the community, in the experience happening right with you.
Yeah.
And then a normal SUV pickup truck is the next closest. And then as soon as you go to like a Kamaz truck that's 17 feet off the ground, and you're just that further away from everything that's happening. I think. So,
yeah, for sure.
But I'd do any of them.
Yeah, I think they all have their pluses.
I saw a tire one.
I don't know if I saw that one.
Yeah, Sebastian, I'm old. Yeah, I graduated college in 2003, so I started desert racing and all that stuff in like '99. So,
Would you consider a satellite phone instead of the radio?
Yeah, I do a satellite phone instead of the radio, or I'd really just with the radio go for it. We have the Dorm, or it's Garmin. It's been Garmin for years. Garmin InReach. And so the Garmin InReach, we can text and ask specific questions. I used to carry a Spot. Now they have the ability to send specific messages, but that's why we upgraded to the InReach. So that's one level of communications. The ham radio works. I did make my ham radio able to use the GMRS frequencies if I needed to. So in emergency, or if she's spotting me, she could get out of the truck with a GMRS and say, little left, little right. If it's loud and I can't hear her, maybe it's raining or something like that. And then I think a sat phone would be good, or the little Iridium Goes where you can check email and get basic Wi-Fi, very basic 50, dial-up modem speeds. Somebody asked
the satellite phone in Baja, right? That's how you were able to get a hold of us.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
Because the radio didn't have quite the range to reach the support trucks.
And so in the race car they have a sat phone, and we used it when we were down there actually to let them know what we needed. Somebody asked on tires.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay, I think it was up. But on tires, all right. Our tires are excessive in the sand, and in certain situations where clearance was important, like big ruts in the jungle where like the illegal logging trucks had been. So they have like 37 or even bigger tires. Those were the times it was really nice to have those big tires, but they're definitely excessive and definitely not the easiest to find. But every country we could have found them in. Every country has off-roaders now. Every country has the internet. And so there's somebody who has big tires on their truck, maybe the exact brand and everything, but we could have found even our tires in every country, but not certainly in every town.
Yeah.
So, the normal sort of 285, 75, 16, that's like a 33, 11 by 16, stuff like that is definitely easier. So I think if you go with a more common size, it's better. But the 255, 85, 16, which is sort of a 33 and a half by, depends on the model, but like 8 to 10 inches wide. So it's a really tall, skinny tire. Those are great for overlanding, but I don't think they're any more common than our giant 35-inch tires. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, we put a piece of metal through our tire in Mexico and then repaired it, and eventually ended up getting the set of KM3s. And then right towards the end of the trip, we had a big chunk of rock like break through our tire. So, and both of those were fairly repairable, not to where I trust them doing 70 down the road, but repairable enough to use it. So the whole idea of carrying two spares anymore with how good tires are, or worrying too much about it, just don't get no name, horrible tires.
Yeah. Any scary animal or insect encounters?
I know the animal one. You can tell Baja mountain lion.
Oh yeah, that was creepy. So we were up in the mountains in Baja, and until that point, we usually kept, we weren't too worried about the back being open because we were up top and it wasn't raining or anything. So we had left the back, bottom open tailgate and stuff open, and we crawled up into bed. And I remember waking up and just thinking that's a weird sound. And I sat up and I just went what is that? What is that? And Tim was half awake. And I think you said you heard it in your dream.
I worked it into my dream. So when you're done or right now, if you have a separate laptop, Google the sound of a female mountain lion. And it sounds like the loudest scream from a horror movie, like a woman screaming bloody murder. And so that was happening 10 feet to the side of our truck. And we just have, we have the zip up windows. So it's, it's coming right in. And I had worked it somehow into my dream.
And so finally, he was awake and I was like, no, that's real. What is that? And so we both just sat there not breathing and trying not to move to hear what it was. And then I think, do we unzip it just a little bit?
Yeah.
And then it heard.
Because I wanted to see this and I was like, what is this? And so the zipper noise that much, and I was just going to do this. It stopped.
We couldn't
screaming.
See anything, obviously. We didn't get that far. It stopped.
And then you hear boom, boom, right near the back of the truck. So it jumped from the rock it was on right next to us, somehow not noticing we were there, or just probably not caring, and then jumped and landed at the back tailgate, which was open. So the back hatch and tailgate.
So we were trying, I was like, should I crawl down and just close the tailgate really fast? What should we do? And then you're thinking about it's just fabric, a lion could just be and come in and get you. But so we sat there barely breathing for probably 5 minutes, just sweating and
I know. And it's, I get the actual chances a mountain lion's going to be oh, let me rip open this tent that's 6 feet off the ground or whatever, unlikely. But man, when it came at you, not away from you, you're not used to animals doing that. When we saw a wolf in New Mexico once, he was on a beeline like this, not coming at us, but he was coming through camp.
Yeah.
And no way did he even slightly veer. He's like, I'm the king, forget you guys. So that same feeling of having a mountain lion jump at you to investigate, not away, was like, put you in your place. So that was scary. Obviously nothing happened, but next morning we found like the footprints and we're just like, I remember my heart rate was just pinned. And I was like, I didn't think this is how I'd react. But
since then, we keep everything closed at night.
I think that was the night. That was the night where we went, let's just close it each night.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Julio, how's it going? And asked if we're going to be at Overland Expo East this year. We have no idea.
Yeah.
We'd love to say that we're going to be at Expo East, West, Colorado, the Overland rallies up in the Pacific Northwest. All that stuff is what we planned on coming home to work this summer, and it was all canceled.
Yeah.
So one, we don't know. Yes, we've seen that there's some dates put back out. One, we don't know if it'll really happen. I don't know what will happen with the world and the pandemic. And then two, we would like to be gone. We spent almost, I don't know how many months now working and saving, and we have some more work we've committed to this company to map some more. And as soon as we're done with that, we really want to go because it's so tough to leave the first time. And we're feeling a little bit of that like hesitation of, well, what if we saved up and did this to the truck? What if we bought that? You're starting to pile on the excuses, which that's what everyone does who doesn't go, right? Mm-hmm. So we're trying to get going while the iron's hot, I guess, and just go while we still are like up for it. I don't know. So not that we're not even considering going. It's just, I want to go. I want to see the world. I want to keep at it. And so somebody else asked how long we'll keep doing this. And
yeah, who knows? I mean, right now, for as long as we can is what we feel like, but who knows how we'll feel in the future.
I mean, given unlimited money, if we didn't need to work, I think right now we'd be doing dirt bike trip somewhere.
Yep.
Then we would be heading over to Australia or the Stands, Mongolia, KKH Road, the Silk Road, the Road of Bones. We want to go down through like Bali and Indonesia and stuff. We want to sail around the world. We want to do all the canal network in Europe. I mean, it's not all off-roading, but it's, I want to do motorcycles in Vietnam. I would love to do a redo of like the Top Gear special there where it's just us or maybe us and some friends and we go buy a scooter and go until it breaks. And so there's so many things we'd like to do. Money is the main thing. But then what's funny is we saved up this year and we could go right now, I think. And we're close anyways. And you can't. So
yeah, we can't right now. So, but we also had stuff that we needed to take care of. Like we said, selling a bunch of stuff in setting ourselves up so that we don't necessarily, we'll always come back to the US because we have family here and stuff, but that we don't have to come back here because we're worried about something. We're pretty free and able to go wherever we want as soon as the world allows us to go wherever we want.
Yeah. Any 80 series parts specifically. So that we wished we would have carried or no, not really. I mean, everything we could find, but I would say people obsess over the brand vehicle. Oh, get a Toyota because they'll have those in all the countries. Yeah, they have them, but like the 80 series or Land Cruisers in general, never sold in Mexico. Now they exist there. Wealthy guys import them. Some of them are like armored and stuff for really wealthy people, but it was never sold in Mexico. So the Toyota dealers, like, we don't carry parts for a Land Cruiser, let alone a 25-year-old one. Bolivia, my truck is everywhere. Colombia, everywhere. Mm-hmm. But then Argentina, there's Land Cruisers, but they did import them for a short-term amount of time, but you just don't see many. The Toyota dealer there I'm talking plugs, wires, cap, and rotor, basic tune-up that I would do on Goose. So I thought I don't need to carry those because of course they'll have them. We get them in 60 to 90 days, 60 to 90 days at a Toyota dealer in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. So that's a big city, a big country that's very developed, right? And they couldn't get parts for our 25-year-old truck.
Well, so they could, but it was longer than we were willing to hang around.
And in every country we saw Fords. In fact, we saw a Ford Raptor in every country, including Bolivia, a Ford Raptor. So, I mean, you can get parts for anything. I don't know if I'd want some obscure Renault or Citroen from the 70s, but if you have anything, you'll find parts eventually. If not, a Bush mechanic can fix it. And then here's sort of what we've just budgeted as being our actual way we're going to get parts if we need something big that we can't get. A flight. So people can fly in and visit you, and you can say, hey, my brother was going to visit us in Ecuador, and he did. Hey, you're coming down. I'll pay for your extra carry-on or your extra checked bag. here's all the stuff I'd like you to fill it with. And he can source it easily, or I can send it to his house and he can come down. Or a friend say, hey, I know you weren't planning on visiting us in Zimbabwe, but if you do, I'll pay your flights. And if that might sound expensive, but when you think 90 days of waiting for parts, and they still might not ever show. I mean, mail around the world, at least in Central and South America, locals were saying, use DHL. Theirs at least shows up 50% of the time from the US. So like it wasn't a guarantee that you'd even get it. So I don't think it's a bad idea to just be like, yep, I have $1,000 sitting somewhere, in a bank account or whatever that I don't want to use. But if I have to, I'm just going to tell a friend, hey man, come visit us, please. And here's all the stuff I need you to bring. I'm going to send it to your house, fill your carry-on bag and come and visit us. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not always legal to bring in car parts into a country. We had some friends have trouble with that in Peru.
Yeah.
But they still got it in eventually. It was a bunch of hoops to jump through. When we came back, because we thought our brake booster was dying on us in Peru as well, right?
Yep.
And I rolled through with my roller bag after working at Expo and stuff. I came back with a brake booster, some bushings.
You're
and
not supposed to bring used car parts into Peru.
And these ones weren't used, but I still thought even car parts, they're going to at least assess 100% tax or something like that. And you just walk in and no one even asked or said anything. So it was fine. But to me, the best way to get parts to you is if you're anywhere near an airport, it's time for someone to come visit you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. What are must-have clothing items on the road? That one's tough. I think I would advise, like, I don't know, taking 2 weeks out of your life and packing a bag of like what you think you might want on the road and living with that and going like, oh, you know what? I never wear that. Or even if it's just like in your normal life, you don't have to be like traveling at the time, but just so you know like what you gravitate towards. Because I think when we first left, we were like, we're gonna get everything that's like quick dry, and all these like really good materials and and then I don't even think you packed jeans.
I didn't, because I was like, well, what are you gonna wear jeans in Central America, and then South America we're gonna be in the Amazon, so jeans, that's not gonna work. And I missed it. I missed all my normal clothes, and so for us, we found a mix of the two. Like, we'll always have a pair of the quick dry pants, for when you go hike a mountain and it's raining or something. It's not going to be fun to wear jeans. We're always going to have a good pair of like boots, but we're not doing 7-day treks. So I don't need full mountaineering boots. Sort of a hiking shoe will work. So we found what works for us. So it's hard to advise anyone else, but we've sort of found a mix of what we're comfortable with, our old clothes from home, and a mix of some better stuff. So like, I had like a Costco down jacket for most of the trip. And there I am in Patagonia cold in a Costco down jacket, right? So not that they're not, actually probably have some nice ones, but when we got home, we tried to figure out what we could get a discount on through this thing called Expert Voice. So if you work in the off-road industry, you probably know about that, or outdoor industry, sorry. So we got a little discount on like good down jackets. We're like, yeah. And so I'd say the one thing we have figured out is buying really good quality things, because we only own 12 pairs of clothing.
You don't have a lot of clothes. I mean, it all fits in a pretty small bag. So
you can have like a waterproof North Face bag, and in it can be, darn tough socks or whatever, good pairs of socks you have. There's no point in having the cheap ones you toss out. Everything has to work and work well. So we have nothing now that we don't really, really like. And I think that's what we finally figured out, is that everything in your bag, it has to be something you like, and it has to be something that's quality.
Is it easier or harder to be fit while traveling compared to before? Way harder for me.
Way harder for us. Everyone else we know, though, said they lost weight when they went overlanding. But I think it depends on your lifestyle. If you live a relatively sedentary lifestyle, before you go, you'll lose weight on the road. For us, I mean, I was used to mountain biking almost every day. And
for a few hours. Yeah. So
and you had time. You had 3 hours to go. I'm not worried about my home. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't tend to get broken into. So one, you were more willing to leave your home. Whereas when it's a truck and you've just showed up to this place, you go, leave it for 7 hours or 5 hours or I don't know. So you're deterred from going off and doing stuff to a degree, not always. Part of that, we got more comfortable the more we traveled. But, you're somewhat deterred. And then I don't like running. I ran like 550 miles last year in 2020, and hated every stride of it, because I don't know, mountain biking, dirt bikes, going to the gym, all these I find at least some fun in. But running, I don't. So, but we make ourselves run.
Yeah, it's just hard for us to get up to the level of activity that we were at before we left.
Yeah.
Even if we're, running every day and exercising, we're still not quite at that level of activity that we were at. So it's tough.
And I think we changed so much the way we eat. We're far from vegetarian, but the amount of meat that we had before we left compared to on the trip, I mean, it's 90% less, because one, sometimes in these markets you see a bucket of meat and there's flies on it and you go, I'm good. But also part of it is you just don't need the calories we did in our old life. Waking up, working out, going to the office, coming home, maybe going for a hike. You just burn a ton of calories. Waking up, closing down camp, it's physical, but then you get in your car and you drive. We had a lot of days, many days where we did 6 to 8 hours driving.
Yeah.
You're just not burning a lot. And so we ate a lot more vegetarian, I think, on the trip, just by default. And then once you get used to how much you need to eat or you should be eating, then you'll do fine on the road. But it was a weird adjustment where at first we were like, in Baja, we ate like we would on a 5-day Baja trip. Carne asada every night with a beer and
when we were on the beach too, it's way easier to do a workout and then you can jump in the water and you don't feel like you're disgusting and sweaty and I don't know. It was very tough. Something that we actually had to try out for sure. Did you already answer the tire size, the common?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. As best I could.
Yeah.
Is Coco's Corner a must stop? Yeah, I think so. While Coco's still alive, you got to go see him. It's now near a paved road. It never was. So it was always part of your adventure. You left sort of the touristy area of Baja, which would be like San Felipe. Love San Felipe, but it's paved roads. As you head south to Puertecitos, there's a little hot springs, and then the road goes to dirt. And Gonzaga Bay was, not off the track, but it was dirt. You were in Baja. And from Gonzaga Bay, as you headed south, it was a horrible, bouncy, bumpy road. And after hours, you came around a corner, and there's Coco's Corner. And it's great because Coco's always nice, always friendly.
He'll always have a story to share with you and pictures.
Yep. I mean, he opens up the fridge he's got that runs off like a generator, and he hands you ice cream or a beer.
Last time he had a pet scorpion. Shows you under here and it's like this giant scorpion that you're like, wow, you sleep right next to that. It's kind of creepy. So
it's pretty cool. And Coco, has had all sorts of health things over the years. If you see the old Coco's Corner stickers, I have one of them where the little running Roadrunner, that's his little logo, has 2 legs. Then about 15 years ago, he lost one of his legs to, I think it's diabetes.
Yeah, I think he has diabetes.
And then the little running Roadrunner had 1 leg. And then the current stickers are the little running Roadrunner with no legs, 2 little stubs. And so he changes it as he loses his legs. So I don't know how long he'll be around. And so I think you got him.
This Baja history, I think it's a cool
guy.
Stop, something that you can say you've seen and experienced that might not be around for that much longer.
Yep.
Can we do occasional live video feeds from the road? We'll try. We might be able to.
It's real tough.
Yeah, it depends on service.
I think, if that Tesla's Starlink or something like that actually gets more adaptable and we can all have it, I'd love to. I'd love to be out in the middle of nowhere right now doing this. With cell phone service in the US, maybe with like 5G or something. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, I saw what are your thoughts on killing the Land Cruiser in the US? It's a bummer, but I understand it. I mean, almost 90,000 or more with tax, basic, old school chassis frame off-roader. It doesn't make sense to most Americans. It might to the folks that are watching this. But even us, we don't tend to buy Land Cruisers new. We buy them as second owners or third owners. And so I totally get it. Which one will stay? Well, it's still the Land Cruiser, but it'll have a Lexus badge and a bunch of ugly chrome and junk on it. At least I think it's ugly. But, it's still the Land Cruiser. So if you want that body and chassis and engine, I think it'll still be available, I believe. But yeah, I totally get it. It makes perfect sense. Same reason I've talked to Toyota guys before at the company about why the 70 series would never come here. Why would they can't make enough Tacomas to sell them. They're back ordered, right? They can't sell. They are selling so many 4Runners that they can't keep up. Why would you introduce a truck that costs as much or more that then implies that a Tacoma and a 4Runner are not the most heavy duty option? So now everyone's going to want to buy a 70 series. But then they drive horribly. Every review of them doing like the squirrel test, or the moose test, they're going to say this is the worst thing that's ever been built.
Very old school.
And then to get past emissions and crumple zones. And I don't see them. We'd love it, but there's no point for them to do it. And it
very
would only
small portion of.
It would only imply that the things they currently import aren't good if they brought in something more heavy duty. So I don't know. I kind of get it.
We got some types of vehicle questions. Know of anyone using a Hummer H2 for overlanding with success and reliability? I don't think I know of anyone.
Say again?
A Hummer H2. Do you know of anyone using that to overland?
Not necessarily, but in the U.S. I do, just not internationally. But it's essentially a Chevy Tahoe chassis, right? As far as I know, and I don't know them super well, so I'm sure you could find out more online. But I think it's essentially a Chevy Tahoe chassis. It's related maybe, and so I think it's fine. Hummer H3, I've almost seen more people using, and it's leaf sprung. It's actually even more simplistic in a way, but it is kind of small. And then Hummer H1s, I just have not seen any. And I think it's such a specific vehicle. That's one I doubt you'd be able to find parts for anywhere.
Yeah, that would be a tough one for sure. That would be a bush mechanic type vehicle. And then what do you think about Mitsubishi Montero for overlanding?
Yeah, it's great. Except for the exact model I told my buddy Steve.
We recommended it.
It wasn't Steve that asked it.
No, I checked.
My buddy Steve, he asked what vehicle. And I used to recommend Toyotas back in the day because they were underappreciated. I remember when I started off-roading in a Toyota around like 99 or something, 2000, people were like, oh, import, that thing's going to fall apart. And we'd pre-run all through Baja and I'd beat the heck out of it and it never had issues. That's when I think Toyotas were underpriced in the used market. Now I think they're so overpriced that it's still fine if you can afford it. But for friends, I'll recommend stuff like Isuzu Troopers and Monteros. They're awesome. And they're simple, relatively speaking. But I was going to say with one caveat, I told my friend to get a Montero and he got one and he has had it in the shop more than he's had it himself, chasing down electrical gremlins, engine codes. It has been a nightmare. So I feel horrible, but I still think those two are awesome vehicles. And those are the underrated ones right now, I think, that don't fetch as much money as they probably should.
Yeah. Ever thought about the feasibility of taking the bikes with you?
Absolutely. We talk about it all the time. We got home. The moment we got to the United States, we went to the storage unit, got our mountain bikes, started traveling with them. And then the pain of them being in our way every night, every time you went into a store, you're worried about them getting stolen, even with cables.
They get
on them
dirty.
and stuff.
They add extra.
And we don't mean dirty like, oh, the bike's dirty. Oh no, we don't care about that. The bikes and the truck are always dirty.
Yeah.
But the whole drivetrain needs like a full cleaning because it's got oil on it. And of course, off-roading for hours and hours and hours, it's just this caked on thing that then doesn't want to shift. I used to go single speed, so I guess you could go back to single speed and prevent some of that. But it ended up being a much bigger pain than it was worth. We both said actually earlier today, if we ended up with a bigger truck, something that could fit mountain bikes, even if I had to like turn the bars straight, take off the pedals and kind of make it skinny, if we had a big truck that could fit them inside, I think we just go ahead and take them because we do love riding. But the way we go, no, just not worth it.
Yes, we did sell the Porsche. Someone asked that.
Yeah, it's gone. Well, it's in the storage unit, but the owner is going to this week have us move it somewhere, and it's his now. So it actually, I thought it was emotional because we did our honeymoon and so many road trips in it, but actually exactly like I'd hoped was a liability that's gone. And, we're not exactly saving for retirement right now because we're just trying to survive. So money like that, we don't use for traveling. We sell a car and that has to just have the discipline to not touch it. Go put it in a boring mutual fund or something. So we're saving. But
if you go back again, would you choose the Land Cruiser again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you?
We had no issues.
Yeah.
I mean, no big issues at all with Goose.
We had the same
my number one choice.
Spark plugs for 80-something thousand miles. Normally at home, I just change them for the heck of it because it's cheap and easy. But we just beat the heck out of them. I mean, we didn't capture it that well in the photos, but after the first 500 speed bumps, topes in Mexico, I was just over it. Now, if there was like people around or stores or children or animals, I'd slow down for a speed bump. But in the middle of nowhere, we just got to where we'd speed up. So he's launched off of 1,000 speed bumps, big and small. And you just think about that abuse, or you think about not just when you go to Death Valley for 3 or 4 days, that kind of off-roading, but picture, out of a 365-day year, 250 minimum days. Yeah. He's just going along a corrugated road and everything's shaking. And you're looking at the dash going, what's going to fall off first? And nothing ever does.
Yeah. The fact that he's still running is amazing.
Yeah.
What he's been put through. We'll probably not go past an hour and a half. We're at about an hour and 10 minutes right now. Okay, so if you have more questions, get them in now. Let's see. I don't know much about what are the good versions of the Montero / Pajero. Mark 1, Mark 2. I don't know really.
I think
much
one,
about
but
them.
I don't know enough. I don't go off what I say on those only because I haven't had enough experience to drill down. I've had friends own them. I do like the earlier ones. The one my buddy had problems with, I believe, was a Montero Sport. So sort of the newer generation, but not even Gen 2. That might even be a different setup. But he had the newer side, and that's where the electronics got him. And even transmission issues, but I think there were electronic transmission issues, not mechanical.
I think he just in general got a unlucky bad truck. But
yeah.
Can we do more mountain biking videos? Yes,
Yeah.
We actually did. They'll be coming up pretty soon. We were in Bend when he was talking about we got the mountain bikes out and we got to go do some riding there.
Bend and Mount Shasta.
Awesome. Yeah.
Mount Shasta, California. We did some rides up the volcano there. It's beautiful. So we'll have those. The way the videos are going to work is we're really close to the end of the trip. We're going to be at the tip of South America. We not just Ushuaia, we drove off to this naval base that's a little further south. We'll be there real soon. And then we'll do the Carretera Austral to Uruguay. And then that's the South America portion done. And then we'll have some mountain biking and exploring while we were out doing the mapping work. And we can't really film. We have to focus on the work when we're doing it, the other work. But we'll have some cool mountain biking videos and stuff like that. And then we'll jump to the FJ40 trip that we just did. So in our 1976 FJ40, just a nice old manual truck with lots of rust. And it's a nice old thing.
Old school.
Yeah. We did a 5-6 day loop around Arizona deserts, just all alone. It was amazing and beautiful. So we'll be catching up to that really fast. And then our goal is to stay within about a month to 2 months maximum within where we're at. We don't want to get behind like we got this time.
Yeah. Now we know how long and basically how long it takes to make the videos and what's involved and all of that. So we have a better idea of how much time we need.
Yeah, Carl, finally got real shock bushings too. That's one of those things. If I had any regrets in prepping the truck, I would say the one thing I wish I would have done is, a lot of these bushings were original from 1995 and they had never had an issue. So I was like, whatever, we'll be gone for 1 year. It's not that long. It's so cheap to do bushings. I could have pressed in new bushings on all the suspension arms and links and all that. And I didn't, just because they'd been fine for 25 years or whatever. So yeah, I think all the bushings we should have done before we left. We ended up doing them at some point on the trip. Any that I hadn't done, we took care of. And we were able to find those from a Toyota dealer easily. So, some stuff you can find. And then the shock bushings, thanks to Icon for, getting the real ones to us, just because we kept putting in cheap bushings. If you remember if you guys have watched the Mexico videos, one set lasted us a day and a half.
It was awful.
I blew them to pieces in a day and a half just because you're corrugated road doing 60 or 50 miles an hour, So yeah, bushings is the one thing I would say you carry extras of maybe.
Yeah. Do you think a 200 series would draw unwanted attention?
No, I think that you would probably just be looked at as, one of the officials in the country or one of the rich guys, like in Mexico.
Probably.
Yeah, Mexico City and in Colombia, and you guys were in Colombia, but we saw 200 series that were up armored, with bulletproof windows, and they just look like important people. Or you think to yourself, maybe it's a cartel person. So I think a 200 series with tinted windows, to a lot of people too, they don't know it's a 200 series. It just looks like an SUV. We've had people say our truck looked like a new truck. And we met a guy who was in a 2015 70 series Troopy, a pop top Troopy. And this, where are they from? Canada. Some friends we were traveling with from Canada go, oh, there's a guy traveling in a Land Cruiser. I was like, oh, like ours? He goes, no, not like new, like yours. It's an old school one. And it was a 2015 Troopy. So perception is funny how ours is 95, but a 2015 can look older, right? So I don't know. I think a 200 series to most people is just an SUV, and it's a newish looking one. So I don't think it would stand out. I wouldn't hesitate. Yeah. I do think though there is something about me that wouldn't mind the 70 series because it is so old school looking.
People perceive it as being more old school, I think, even if it's not, but it just has that look to it. Yeah.
It seems more like a beater truck, and you kind of go, oh, this old thing. So I like the idea of the older and more beat up my truck looks, the happier I am, I think. I mean, yeah, we never had an issue with it. So it is just the way people interact with you might change slightly.
Yeah. Julio said he loves his Dirt Sunrise shirt. Good.
That's cool.
Thank you guys so much too for all the orders. We've had so many orders. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah.
Let us know, if everything is turned out okay.
Yeah.
If you like it. We had a few that they had printed it wrong. So if you had something like that, please let us know. Send us a picture of it.
Yeah, if you can send us a photo of anything. I think they're doing a pretty good job. We just had 2. The very first thing we ordered wasn't quite right on our logo. It was messed up. And then a hat my dad got had Dirt Sunrise like written in the wrong spot. So if you don't think it looks right, shoot us a photo. And send us photos of you guys wearing them and stuff. We'd love to put them in the videos and share them to Instagram if you're comfortable with it. So I agree, Chris, like a 4-door 70 series, such a great truck. Actually, the ultimate truck, in my opinion, not overlanding, just ultimate truck. Maltec built an 80 series chassis. So 80 series have immensely better suspension than a 70 series. And so it was an 80 series chassis with a double cab 79 series pickup truck on top of it. So you had the looks and the utility of that 70 series with the chassis of an 80. So that's my super geeked out. If you only had an extra 150 grand he wanted for it. So.
Yeah. And shout out to Jesse and Trevor who became
thank
members.
You guys.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool. So yeah, I mean, that's where we're heading. We just want to never stop, honestly. And that's why we're so strict about how much we spend on everything when we're traveling. To go back to the budget, which we had enough questions, we didn't have a lot of time to go over it. We met a lot of people who had a budget. And here's my criticism of having a budget per country, unless you adjust it constantly. Most of the people with budgets we met, they would be in a cheap country and they'd say mid-month, let's say, hey, we're doing really good on our budget. We can spend an extra couple $100. So they'd spend all the way up to their budget, right? They would spend more. But then in an expensive country, let's say Chile, where fuel is $5 or $6 a gallon, they were far over their budget. So it's like, it wouldn't keep you from spending too much in an expensive place because costs are what they are. But then in a cheap country, it gave you the excuse to spend up to and make sure you used all your budget. So for us, we didn't ever do a budget. We just always tried to spend as little as we could. Yeah. And we'd look at each other. And thankfully, we were almost always on the same page. We'd been in Bolivia for a week. Up in the jungle, 90 degrees, 90% humidity. You lay in bed and sweat the whole night. It's kind of miserable. It's worth going because it's amazing and beautiful and the animals, but you're kind of miserable. And we'd look at each other and go, how are you doing? Okay. But shower would be amazing. I'd go, okay, let's get the phones out and find an Airbnb or a hotel, within a day or two's drive. And then we'd spend the money and then we'd go back to camping. In Argentina, the mountains were so dry and cool. Sort of like being in Colorado in summer. It might sound gross, but we did a month and a week without going to a paid campsite, without getting a shower, without getting a hotel room or anything like that. And it was a month and a week of just camping, hiking, loving it, not feeling any need to spend a penny. And we even camped still a lot of that time without moving. So it really depends on where you're at, I think. And for us, it's just spend as little as possible so we can go further and do more. I do think the one change we'd make as we are able to spend more, as we have a few more bucks, is more of those little side trips, more of those little things that cost you. We should have gone out to that island. We should have taken that tour. That looked pretty amazing. So some of that stuff, I think if we were to do it again, we'd say, look, I don't think I'm going to find myself in this part of the world again. I might, I hope I do, but if I don't, I'll regret not doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Aside from overall heading south, how did you do your route planning? Did you use websites, apps, GPS, word of mouth to figure out where you can go?
No, let me say what we did and then actually what I think about it. So what we did was we put out a Google map to all of our friends who have traveled all over the world and just any friends really, and said, what are your favorites? And we had all these hundreds of pins on Central and South America. Yeah. And when you're traveling, it's just it's so hard to detour and go to those things. What you actually end up doing is going with the flow. So we were, you look at our map and it goes here, then we went back over here. Yeah, it might have been more efficient to do it like this, but in the time, there was a guy that wanted us to come say hello over here and we're going to stay at his house. So we couldn't have gone in order. It just is going to work out like it's going to work out. And for us, we had general ideas. Hey, we need to be in Panama to ship our truck, or our parents are flying into Costa Rica. Let's go. We need to be here on this day. Yeah. But anytime we had a definitive date like that, we got stressed out a little because your whole month leading up to needing to be somewhere is sort of dictated by it,
Yeah, I think the best thing is for us, we found, was not having any of those set deadlines, because then it would be a bummer when you were somewhere that you found that you didn't think maybe that you would love so much and you couldn't stay there as long as you wanted to. I don't know. Did the video just cut out?
Oh, yeah, that's that. Quick, turn it on to this.
I don't know how.
Can you guys hear us still? The camera just shut off. I think we just pulled these, yeah?